Comic Book Savant, episode 317.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going back and we're going to follow up on the comic book shows that I covered in the fall preview way back in episode 306. So it's going to be non-spoiler reviews or updates on those shows, those comic book shows that I covered then. It's so much stuff on TV now. I know people might have not been able to keep up on all the comic book shows, and we're getting more and more. And coming into the new year, we're going to have some shows even coming in as mid-season replacements. So I wanted to kind of give you a guide, since you're going to have a lot of free time during the holidays, to maybe you can pick and choose what shows you might want to binge, since all the main shows that I'll be covering are all on mid-season hiatus right now that you can catch up and binge. So before we get into all that, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show and you want more comic-related podcasts, that's a good portal or jumping off point to find more comic book-related podcasts. If you're into a particular character, team, publisher, you name it, the Comics Podcast Network is a good place. There are literally hundreds of different podcasts that you can find there based on whatever you're particularly looking for. So definitely, if you have a moment, stop by the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com. Also, if you go to the website, it should be a link to the Comics Podcast Network there as well. And last but not least, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, which is InStockTrades.com. Definitely, if you have a moment, check out InStockTrades.com. One of the best places that you can go on the internet for collected editions. They have some of the cheapest prices you're going to find anywhere on the internet, and they have one of the biggest ranges of selection as well. If you're not familiar with InStockTrades.com, they do a special deals of the week that they have featured on their homepage, where you can get up to 50% off on a selected grouping of books. Just looking at the website right now, they have the Absolute Edition of Infinite Crisis. You can get that 50% off, only $49.99. They have the Captain America Steve Rogers trade paperback volume 1, 50% off, only $9.99. We have the DC Rebirth Omnibus hardcover, 50% off, $37.50. You have the Deadpool by Pashan and Dugan, which is 50% off for that omnibus. We have Doctor Strange trade paperback volume 1, 50% off, only $9.99. The Guardians of the Galaxy by Brian Michael Bendis omnibus, $62.50 with 50% off. Legend of Wonder Woman hardcover, 50% off, only $14.99. Star Wars Kanan Omnibus hardcover, 50% off, $17.49, which was a good little series that I felt like was canceled too soon. I reviewed some of the issues. I think it only went 12 issues before it was canceled. It's tied into Kanan Jarrus of Star Wars Rebels. You've heard me talk about Star Wars Rebels. He's the Jedi character on that show. It was a limited series that went to an ongoing series, then went to canceled. But it was a pretty solid series if you're a Star Wars fan, or if you're a fan of Rebels. I think you would really enjoy the series. So that's a really good deal. Then we have the Star Wars Poe Dameron trade paperback volume 1, 50% off, only $9.99. And last but not least, they have Uncanny X-Men hardcover volume 2, 50% off, $25. So they have some really good deals. And if you're not familiar, if you're a U.S. customer, any orders $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. If you're an international customer, you still get the 50% off. You just won't get the free shipping for orders $50 or more. But they do have some of the cheapest and most competitive international rates around. So you would still get great savings, but you'll just have to cover your shipping. So definitely, if you have a moment, stop by InStockTrades.com. Let them know Comic Book Savant sent you. I really appreciate that. But back to the meat of the episode, which is catching up on what's going on in the comic book sphere when it comes to TV shows. Now, we're going to be talking about Flash. We're going to talk about all the CW shows because, as you know, guys, I'm a huge fan of those shows, so I keep up with all of those shows, as well as The Walking Dead, because I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Star Wars Rebels. So those are the shows that I'm going to be covering and bringing you guys up to date on. The Flash, again, which is on CW, which Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I can say in this first half of the season, as I stated before in episode 306 in the preview, coming off of the end of season 2 was kind of on a down note for me, and where the first season of Flash was so strong, it kind of has decreased for me. The second season was a little bit disappointing, especially how the season ended. Like I said, it felt like they were doing something repetitive with the resetting of the time stream, and they teased Flashpoint, which we've had some dealings with. Again, this is going to be non-spoilers because I want you guys, if you haven't had a chance to watch this stuff, that you can go back and watch it, and everything's not spoiled for you. But so far in this first half of the season, it's been to me a little uneven. It's been some things that I haven't really enjoyed, and then it's had some really high points and some good character development, especially with our main group when it comes to Barry, Iris, Caitlin. I really like the stuff they've done with Caitlin's character. I really like Danielle Panabaker, and I felt like she was one of the most underutilized people in the cast, and I felt like so far in this first half of the season, they've done a really good job with her and with Cisco. With that combination of the characters, they've really given them a more meat to flesh their characters out with more, and I've always liked them, but they seem less as supporting characters and more characters on their own that are equal to Barry and Iris and Joe in the actual series for me now. So I'm glad. That's one thing I've been very glad of. The character development has been awesome. The actual story progression, the main storyline progression with the overall story arc for the season, that's where it's been really hit or miss. Like I said, it's been some really high points, and then it's been some not cringeworthy, but just off par of how strong the first season in the storytelling seemed to be in that first season. It's kind of been uneven. You'll hear me say that a lot when it comes to a lot of these shows. The consistency episode to episode, wanes, and sometimes you get that, but it seems more glaring this season than in previous seasons. So, my recommendation going in, or my anticipation level that I said back in episode 306 for Flash was it was going to be a good watch. I still feel like it's a good watch. Again, that was me going in based off of how season 2 ended, going into when I did my preview based on everything I saw, like trailers leading into the season premiere, that I kind of felt like it was just going to be a good watch. It's not a must-watch show for me like it used to be, but I'm so invested in the CW universe. I'm going to keep up with the shows, but I used to be chomping at the bit for the next episode of Flash to come out, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'm watching it. And like I said, the high points have been really high, and then everything else has kind of been meh for me. So it's not my most favorite CW show at this point, but it's still a solid show for me. Next show I'm going to talk about is Arrow. Again, also on CW on Wednesday nights. This show probably would win comeback show of the year so far in this first half of the season. For me, this was like I said going in that this was going to be a show that I would just watch on demand because I kind of have to watch it because I'm into the CW universe. This is the one that kicked everything off, and it was such a strong show for seasons 1 and 2, and they've kind of tapered off and had really struggled. And really going into last season, I was not, too key on anything going into the season outside of seeing the Russia flashbacks because, they've talked about it so much and hinted towards it. And it was like one of the biggest mysteries about his dark time leading up to when the show started that I wanted to find out more about. And so we've finally gotten a chance to see, some of that. They announced that in the summer when they did the preview trailer. So it's kind of cool to get that. They just really have done a good job getting the show kind of back on track and going back to the essence of what made Arrow great to begin with. It's really, really has turned the show around. I think maybe out of all of the shows that we're going to talk about on CW, this might be one of the stronger shows they have going right now. They really put a lot of hard work in getting the show back to what made it such a fan favorite to begin with. So for me, it went from on demand to a required viewing. This is a show that I look forward to watching to see where the storylines are progressing with all the characters. They've introduced, if you've seen any of the trailers, they've introduced characters like Wild Dog, Ragman. We got more of Curtis now being Mr. Terrific. So you're seeing more of that development. It's Team Arrow as we knew it at the end of last season kind of broke up and went their separate ways. So they've replenished the ranks. They've done a really good job developing this new team of trainees, and you're really seeing some progression in Oliver being more of a leader and a trainer. And in this, and as well him, assuming the role of mayor, the duality in the character. So showing a lot of growth. And they just, it's really clicking. I wouldn't say it's a must watch because it was so low for me on a scale of being, something that was like on demand, to, bringing it up to a required viewing. That's a big jump. So they've done a lot of real good work on the show. And I've been really enjoying it so far. So definitely that's one, if you haven't watched Arrow in a season or two, because it's been kind of low and a lot of people have left watching the show. They've lost a lot of fans over the few years. I think this is the season that has been a real redemption turn for Arrow. So if you haven't been watching it, definitely give it a shot now. You'll definitely, I think you really will enjoy it. If you really enjoyed season 1 and 2 of Arrow, you're gonna fall back in love with the show based on this season. Next show, which we had on CBS last year, now that has moved over to CW. It comes on Mondays on CW, which I think, yeah, it's Monday. I saw one of the shows. I want to say maybe it's Legends of Tomorrow. One of the shows are actually switching nights. I can't remember if it's Supergirl or Legends of Tomorrow, that when the shows come back on in January, the end of January, I think it's the last week of January when all the CW shows come back that last week. Either Supergirl or Legends of Tomorrow will be shifting to Tuesday night. So I think it'll be Flash and whichever one of those shows on Tuesday with it. Supergirl has been just what I wanted it to be. So far in the transition to CW, I felt like the first 2 episodes were a little shaky. As you know from previews, if you've seen any trailers on Supergirl, the first 2 episodes had Superman in them. Those to me were the shakiest because they were transitioning certain things, and certain characters were shuffled or no longer on the show, and they kind of had to kind of explain all the new setup and why certain things on the show changed in the settings and why certain characters weren't there. So it was a little shaky for me, maybe the first 2 episodes. From that point on, Supergirl has been everything I've wanted it to be. They've had a really phenomenal storyline with Alex, with Kara's sister Alex. really personal journey, just really well told about her coming to a point in her life and really discovering herself and who she is outside of being Kara's, older sister and trying to protect her from the world and this hardworking DEO agent. I've really been struck by that storyline, and I've really enjoyed it. It's great character development. They've been doing a really good storyline with James Olsen and also with Wynn as well, developing those characters. So the character development has been great. The storytelling has been awesome. They've introduced Lena Luthor in the show. So they've really done some really great things, building up this show and converting it over and finding a way to implement it in the bigger picture of the CW universe. And I'm going to get to the big 4-part Invasion crossover as well in a moment after I talk about Legends of Tomorrow. So for me, Supergirl was required viewing going in when I talked about it in the fall preview. It has maintained that. It's pretty much been the same fun, good show that it was on CBS. I've seen some little tweaks here where production, I think in some aspects with special effects and things of that nature, might have been slightly better on the CBS show, but it was way more expensive and it almost caused the downfall of the show of it being canceled. So I can take the little hits on certain effects. Shots are not as clean or not as good as they might once were, but still the overall quality of the show, that's just a minor quibble on an overall great show. And that move, being done to CW and being up in Vancouver filming with all the other shows is it's just been working for the show. So like I said, those minor quibbles aside, I still feel like the show was totally awesome and is really hitting its stride, and one of the funnest shows as far as comic related shows for me to watch on TV. It's like a real treat watching Supergirl. Just the tone is so starkly different from the other CW shows, and Melissa Benoist is really just knocking it out of the park as Supergirl. She's so super engaging and just a pleasure to watch on screen in that role. Like, she brings so much to it. Just her enthusiasm for the character, and I think embodies the character so well. Then we have Legends of Tomorrow. This comes on Thursday nights, 8 CW. Legends of Tomorrow probably is... it's a fun show. It's a different show. I think far as writing... The writing side of it, in some parts, character development is probably the weakest of the CW shows. It's still in its infancy. I think they're still trying to find their way with the show overall compared to those shows, because it was really something that was supposed to be limited in scope, and it did well enough for them to warrant to give it a whole show. It came in as a mid-season replacement last year. Now it's getting a full season, and I think it still is dealing with some growing pains. I think the show gets better with each episode. I think they're trying to get to the point now where they're, they were a random group of characters thrown together to complete this mission. And as the show goes on further, I think they're trying to shift towards the show to make you really care about all these individual characters and make you believe of them as a family. And I think that's where the struggle, I think it took them a little while to get there. I hope in the second season they push more, because I don't believe they're a family at this point. I like certain characters, but they're slowly but surely trying to build that chemistry between the two. I think the first season the biggest misstep was that so much of the focus was on Hawkman and Hawkgirl. All the other characters took a back seat of really developing them fully, because so much of what went on with it being Vandal Savage and his link to him were so consumed by that. Now it's really a lot of these characters that, even though they were in the first season, they're only being developed now. So it's taking it some time, but I feel like it's in that aspect compared with the other shows, character development has been so strong. Maybe the storytelling might has been off. The character development has been so good. They're getting there, but I feel like out of the shows, the writing here, they're still trying to find the voice of the show and really pin it down. I'm hoping, by season's end, they really get it nailed down with the core characters they're keeping around on the show. I think the biggest standout for me is Katie Lutz as Sarah Lance. Her character has grown so much, and Dominique Purcell as Heatwave. I feel like those two characters are really the heart of this show. And they've done a phenomenal job, and they're the two reasons why, that really keep me invested in the show. They just are awesome. How they develop their characters, and Dominic, Purcell with his one-liners, and he reminds you he is DC Television's Drax the Destroyer, like with Batista, in the Guardians movie. Like, he just has that, whenever he's on screen saying something, he just has the best lines, and he's just hilarious. Again, it was required viewing for me last season. I'll say it's a good watch now. It's a good, stable show. I like the concept of it with the time travel. They're doing some stuff now where they're bringing in some of the other villains and doing some interesting things there. We've seen, going back in time, we've seen the original JSA, which is really cool. They're doing some really good things. So definitely, it might not be the top of the list if I'm recommending the CW shows to watch first. I definitely say it's still, if you liked season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, it's improved since then. So if you were like, oh, it was kind of okay, give it a try. Give at least a few episodes a try. See how it strikes you. If you enjoy it, I think keep watching it, and I think, like I said, each episode improves more and more as you go through. So it's definitely worth a view. And if you got free time on your hands to binge, just watch all the CW shows because they're all interconnected. It all culminated where they did it was really a 3-part, but a 4-part invasion storyline where all the characters were brought together to fight against the Dominators. It was before my time reading DC comic book, the Dominators were it was some big crossover in the 80s. It was an interesting crossover. It was tremendous that they pulled something that big where all the characters from all the shows were intertwined, and they did it across all 4 shows for 1 week. That was very interesting. I think they did an admirable job. It wasn't perfect, but I felt like all in all, they did an exceptional job. And I'm just like, I don't know how they're going to top that going forward, in subsequent years, if they keep doing these crossovers and they keep adding more shows and they keep trying to tie them all in together. It had to be a massive undertaking, and I think they did a really good job in pulling it off. But like I said, it wasn't perfect, but it was really darn good. And I feel like they've painted themselves into a corner now, because I don't know how they can top that next year, what they could do to top it and it be nearly as good where people won't be disappointed. But it'll be interesting to see them top themselves, because they've done it each year as the shows have grown. They've crossed them over and things of that nature. So it's going to be very interesting. Next show I want to talk about is The Walking Dead. This is on AMC Sundays. What is it? 9 p.m. This is another show that last year was a must-watch for me. Again, this one, it was where I go back to consistency. Consistency has plagued a lot of shows. They've had really strong standout episodes that everyone watches and talks about, and it keeps you kind of glued into the show. And then there's other episodes in between that the quality drops off substantially, or they tend to veer far off from the main storyline that everyone really wants to see progress. It kind of comes to a crawl in favor of these thrown away, maybe one Walking Dead is known for this, and those one-off character episodes are really normally strong. They've had some strong episodes, but then the episodes that weren't as strong really has you wondering, like, gosh, why am I still watching this show? So again, it's a thing where the highs are super high, but the lows are like, really slows down a lot of the momentum built up in the show. And I know, for these different shows, you either have 22 episodes, or like with Walking Dead, you have like 16 episodes to try to spread a story across. And sometimes I would rather the seasons be shorter, so we wouldn't have to have so much filler episodes, and you can tell just the story you want it to tell at the rate you want it to tell it without the filler, because sometimes that really hurts a show's momentum. And nowadays there's so much to watch on TV, it's so much competition that it's easy for someone to be like, hey, I'm not bothering with this anymore. So I'd rather, if Walking Dead is 16 episodes, but they can really tell the story in 10 or 12, I'd rather have just 12 episodes. With the CW shows, I kind of felt like 22, I talked about this last year, when all the shows finished for the year, and I did the review, a year-end review, that I kind of felt like with the CW shows, instead of like 22-ish, not issues, we're talking about TV shows, episodes, that maybe they could get away with easily doing 16. And they could, when I counted the episodes that I kind of felt filler unnecessary, were somewhere around that 6 range. So I feel like they could get away better with, doing maybe 16 instead of 22. Even with the Netflix shows, the pacing of some of them that, instead of having, 13 episodes, to have maybe 10 or 11 instead of the 13. So it's this thing, and it's a business. So I understand, they got to sell advertising. That's how they make money. So more is more, but, I think less is more for us, but for them, they got to make money to keep these shows in production, so they have to do what they have to do. So it's kind of a, catch-22. If we want to keep seeing these great shows hit TV, where, we have to deal with that we're going to have filler episodes. It's going to chop up and slow down the momentum of the show at times, but it's a necessary evil to get these shows made. So again, it was a must watch. It's dropped down to a required viewing just due to the inconsistency of the quality from episode to episode. And just, we want more of the main story sooner than what we're getting it. And it kind of lulls us to like, why am I watching this? And then right when you're like, why am I watching this anymore? They'll hit you with that other episode to keep you hooked into the show. So I just kind of go with the flow and take it for what it is, but it does make it feel dragged out at times. It makes it hard because you keep losing momentum. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., ABC Tuesday nights, I think it's 10 p.m. now, Eastern time. This show to me has probably been my second far as comeback show of the year behind Arrow. They've really done, I've enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the last few seasons. A lot of people left the show. They felt like it was too heavy on the Inhumans and all that other stuff. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was well done. A lot of people left the show. Ratings, kind of struggling. This first half of the season was dubbed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ghostwriter. It was really focused. They've had Gabriel Luna as Ghost Rider. He's been phenomenal. He's done just a great job without spoiling anything. This first half of the story, or the first half of the season, has been focused on that, and they've already showed previews for coming when they come out for the mid-season. It'll be another theme. So they're doing these themed thing, which might be kind of good because they didn't have themes last season, but they kind of had Inhumans the first half and then went another way the second half. So I'm glad that you kind of know what you're getting into, what the overall arching theme or story is going to be by the subtitle to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's a lot of changes went on in the show. We saw that in the season finale where they jumped ahead 6 months. I think this is a strong show. They moved it to a later time slot because it was a little bit darker content that we were dealing with the Ghost Rider material, and they had to have it in later. You couldn't have it where, this is more of adult, darker tone for this first half. I hate that it had to go to that later time slot because you lose a lot of potential viewers, and then you're going up against like the powerhouses like CBS, NBC with their 10 o'clock dramas, so it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And because of it, the ratings, I was reading some articles recently, and like that the ratings are down quite a bit, and I think it more has to do not with the quality of the show, because I feel like the quality of the show has remained strong, and it's came a long way from that very first season to now, and I think it's a really solid show that deserves its place. But I think them going darker and putting it at that time slot with the competition that they have, at that time slot is what's hurting it. And, maybe if they could get away with even doing it at 9 instead of 8, it might help. But it's taking a hit and it's losing, viewers. I worry if this might be the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I hope not. I've grown really attached to these characters, so I'm hoping they'll be able to pull it out in the end. But, I had high hopes for that. We would have had a season 3 of Agent Carter, and that never happened. So this show might be on life support, and this might be the last season. And they might, if anything, they might give them one more season so they can properly close the show out. It's been some rumblings that it might be a spinoff for Ghost Rider because, that charted very well. And the fans have been raving about the Gabriel Luna's Ghost Rider character. So that'll be interesting to see. Will Ghost Rider possibly replace Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC? Or, I would maybe like to see that Ghost Rider series on Netflix. Then it's, rumblings that, DC, if I can talk, not DC, if Disney it might consider buying Netflix. So, maybe that could change things about seeing Agent Carter coming back, or maybe doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe as a Netflix show and not as a network show. It remains to be seen at this point. It's been rumblings. It's been nothing officially announced yet. That was announced like a couple of weeks back. So it'll be interesting to see what'll shake out with that and how it might save or expand what we're getting on TV with the Marvel Universe at this point. But right now, all signs are not looking great for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's really a solid show. Like I said, it was a must-watch for me last year. It's, like I said, consistency of episodes and certain things, you lose steam from the main storyline. I still feel like it's required viewing for me. I still enjoy it very much so. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about Star Wars Rebels. This show was so important. I can't stress this enough. We got Rogue One coming out this week. This is set between the end of the Clone Wars and Episode 4. And this show is it's 5 years before New Hope. So this goes up and it kind of overlaps with Rogue One, but we don't exactly know how at this point. So it's going to be real interesting to see. We just got the mid-season finale for Rebels, but it's going to be a two-part episode, a two-parter coming out, I think, in early January, that it ties into Rogue One in some shape, form, or fashion. And it's going to be some tie in there. We don't know. Lucasfilm already said from the very beginning that they knew this movie overlapped and how it connected to Episode 4 and Rogue One. We just don't know the connection now. We're on season 3 right now. And you're seeing, inklings of it. I think more will be revealed in this two-parter that'll be coming out in January or is it? It comes out in January or after, for sure after this week when the movie is released. And it definitely deals with aspects of Rogue One and the Death Star. So it definitely will be interesting to see. We'll get a clearer picture. And it's some things that are being, especially from the mid-season finale, that might indicate this show has some tie-in to Episode 7 and Episode 8. as well. It really binds the whole universe together because you got Clone War era stuff, prequel era stuff, New Hope era stuff, all tied in and flow through within this show. So if you're a Star Wars fan and you have not watched this show, you can, now this is one show that you could definitely binge easily. And I think if you've ever watched the Clone Wars, you would really enjoy Rebels. This show was a must-watch for me. It's been a required viewing. They had some later episodes, and you have the only down part to this show more than any is that it's on Disney XD, so they can't cater to us adult fans because it's on Disney XD, and you got to have some kiddie episodes. So they have some really not cringeworthy, but just hard to watch, really kiddie-focused episodes because they got to focus to that crowd, and then they'll have these super strong. Dark, some really dark stuff too mixed in there as well for us adult fans in there as well. So they have to play that balancing act, especially on what show, on what channel it actually shows on it. And I forgot to say this. It comes on Disney XD Saturdays, I think like 8:30 Eastern time. So it plays a weird balancing act. It's a must watch before going into the season. It's been required viewing. Like I said, it had 2 or 3 back-to-back episodes that were kind of okay, but they were more kiddie focused. The first few episodes in the season were extremely strong. Then again, you got to mix in the kiddie elements, and then it finished up strong with the last 2 episodes going into the mid-season finale. So again, it's playing that tightrope and placating to where your show's being aired, and you got to placate to that core demographic in it. So, but all in all, it's still a really great show to watch. All of these shows are really, really good picks. These are the ones that I keep up with. I'm 100% current across the board with all of these, so I can talk about these with the utmost confidence on to preach the gospel on how good they are if you are missing out on them, for sure. Probably if I had to rank the shows, I would say probably Arrow would be the one show I could recommend the most. If you're a Star Wars fan, I would have to say Rebels is the show you would need to start with if you're not watching. Then Walking Dead, that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's extremely strong, and it's been consistent. Probably I could recommend highly all the shows. I would probably say the weakest shows on this list probably I would say would be Legends of Tomorrow and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're still very good watchable shows, but I would rank all the other shows above those 2, but I would still recommend you watch those 2 if you have the time. But they would be at the bottom of the list. Anything else I would rank higher, and it's just on your taste preference, because we got sci-fi with Star Wars, and if you're a Star Wars fan, you got, with The Walking Dead, that's that horror, genre, though it's really not that much horror anymore, on the show. I don't see too much scary stuff on it. Supergirl for light, fun, superhero action. Arrow's a little bit darker and gritty street. You got Flash for the fantastical speedster elements and the time, popping in and out of time, similar to Legends of Tomorrow. So it's a nice, good mix of shows there, just depending on what's your interest, at the time. But there's plenty of shows that got giving you plenty of recommendations on stuff to keep your long days and nights during the holidays coming up, filled with comic book goodness. So take your pick, choose your poison, and have fun with it. I just want to touch on a few quick things. We've had a ton of comic book related trailers drop. We had Guardians of the Galaxy trailer drop, I think, since right before I did the last episode. Phenomenal. Already, seen the first one. I think that was the second one. So ready for that movie. We've had Spider-Man Homecoming, the first trailer drop. Whoa. I was wondering about so many things. I love the look of the Vulture. Oh, wow. Michael Keaton. I'm looking so forward to that. What else dropped? Been so many trailers just like coming left and right. Those are the two that stand out in my mind. Again, we are just a few days away from Rogue One. I'll be talking about that actually next week. That'll be next week's episode. Full spoiler review of, Rogue One. From watching Rebels, I read, I did the audiobook for Catalyst, which is a prequel to the events of Rogue One, which is, it's not a required reading, but if you're a fan of the Star Wars, the books now that are canon, it made me care so much more about the characters. It gives you a lot of background on Jen's parents, specifically Jalen, the Orsos, just the Orso family and Krennic, and setting up a lot of the backstory between the Orsos and Krennic and the Orsos' role in the whole Death Star situation. It's a very, very good book. Check out Audible. You can get the audio book. It's like about 11 or 12 hours. You can knock it out in a couple of days. It's very addicting. I've just got on the audio book train, and I've done the Ahsoka book and now Catalyst, and I want to go back and get some more of the different Star Wars canon books because they have a ton, and it just adds so much more depth to the characters in the world of Star Wars. So Disney's been, knocking it out, not just with the movies, but with the other content surrounding their films and shows. So definitely they're worth checking out. Also follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Check out the website, comicbooksavant.com. I got a YouTube channel up now. Right now, like I said, I'm still trying to work on my first video. It kind of takes me back to when I first started podcasting. It's so nerve-wracking because I'm like, do I want to show my face on video, or do I just want to do, have comic clips and then just do like commentary? I've been researching it and seeing what other comic book YouTubers do, and I'm just trying to find what I'm comfortable with. It's super nerve-wracking to find a real formula. It's like after doing this for 10 plus years, it's automatic now. I have a whole process and workflow worked out on how I do the audio show. So doing a video show, like you have to, it's like you're basically starting totally from scratch. So it's a bit of a mess, but I'm working on that. I want to get this first video out by the end of the year. It might be the beginning of next year before it actually get rolled out. But I do have audio versions of the episodes that I do through Libsyn that automatically post to the YouTube channel. So some content there. So if you're on the go or you're sitting at your desk and you want to listen to the podcast, you can go to YouTube, do a search for Comic Book Savant. You should be able to find the YouTube channel and can listen to the episodes. So I'm building up content by letting those episodes go there, but I'm going to be doing some web specific only content through the YouTube channel as time comes. And if you have any suggestions, things you want me to do, any suggestions about the YouTube content, you can always email me at comicbooksavant@gmail.com, or you can just go to the website at comicbooksavant.com, and it's a contact me page, and you can send a message right through there as well. So either or, let me know if you have any suggestions, things you want me to cover, any comments, critiques, any of that kind of stuff. Any feedback I get from you guys, I greatly appreciate. But that's all I got for you guys for this week. Again, we'll be back next week with the full review of Star Wars Rogue One. So be on the lookout for that. And I will see you guys later, and you take care.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.